Since joining the Premier League, Bruno has been one of the best midfielders in the country. He's become Newcastle's captain, their leader, and a major piece in a side that went from mid-table to the Champions League. But Newcastle now look like they're heading into another transition period, and with Bruno in his prime, you have to wonder how long he'd be willing to stay. One of the teams that's taken note is Arsenal. They've been linked with Bruno for years, going all the way back to his time in Brazil. So what exactly is it that Arsenal really admire even after all these years? And what would Bruno bring to Arteta's side? And is he really the midfielder they need? Bruno is oftentimes the deepest midfielder when his team has the ball. He's fantastic at getting his side up the pitch, and it all starts with his high level awareness and forward thinking. He constantly checks over his shoulder, building the picture before the ball's even arrived. I want you to pay close attention to him here. His team has the ball in an area where the opposition can easily win the ball back. They've looked to squeeze with numbers, and one bad move could easily lead to a dangerous counter. Before his teammates prepare to give him the ball, Bruno looks ahead to see what's happening. The pass is played to him, and with the defender breathing down his neck, he threads the ball over the top through a tight window, with his teammate in acres of space to attack. He's completely managed to disrupt a really good pressing trap. Bruno's passing from deep is such a nightmare to play against. And what makes him even more difficult to play against is his willingness to position himself right at the heart of the opposition's defensive shape. It's such a risky area to receive and make things happen, but if you get it right, you can totally nullify the opposition's press. Take a look at this play. Bruno's positioned himself here, boxed in by the opposition. Again, pay attention to what he does before the pass is played to him. He has a quick glance over his shoulder, not whilst the opponent is ready to pounce. There's no obvious passing target, and instead of playing it long, Bruno takes a touch slightly away from the defender, which buys him valuable time. He then passes to his teammate, and because the defender overcommitted, Bruno now has acres of space to attack. With a few subtle but high level moves, he's tipped the balance in his side's favour. Whilst it can be really rewarding having someone who can receive in these areas and make positive plays, it's important to weigh up whether it's worth it, especially with how prepared and potent teams are when they win the ball back in the Prem. Last season, Bruno really struggled getting out of these situations, particularly with his dribbling. He was easier to press and rarely showed that first step which made him so difficult to stay in front of. Here he is, positioned right in the centre of the opposition's shape. He's looked over his shoulder and sees a defender behind him. As he receives the pass, he tries to flick the ball away, but he does it with no conviction and ends up being dispossessed. This has been a regular theme of his last season. He's leaving the ball exposed, which he often does to entice defenders, but he hasn't been quick enough to react first. According to Opta, Bruno has had one of his worst seasons when it comes to dribble success since he's been in the Prem. You don't need to see the numbers to figure that out either. Bruno has always had a risky style to his dribbling, almost like a game of cat and mouse the way he's looking to outsmart defenders. It requires real sharpness and force with how much he exposes the ball. But the season gone by has led to him having real difficulty in skipping past players as often as he does. Now, Bruno has had a major hamstring injury which saw him miss 14 games last season. Is this a sign of him naturally slowing down with age, or could it be more mental than it is physical? I mean, it was a World Cup year, and quite possibly he didn't want to re injure himself heading into the summer tournament. In my opinion, it's difficult to say whether the age is catching up to him, as he has shown glimpses of his usual self, especially before the injury which kept him out for a while. Look at this play here. He looks over his shoulder well before the ball gets to him, as always. He has another glance over his other shoulder as he notices the opponent arriving from that direction. Just pay attention to the brilliance of Bruno here. He takes a touch, putting himself between the defender and the ball. The defender has to stop sharply, which Bruno uses to his advantage by putting the ball through his legs with a quick second touch. Now there's acres of space for him to attack. This is Bruno at his best in a nutshell. He positions himself slightly to the right here, but when he sees the gap open up, Bruno looks to receive centrally, even though it's such a vulnerable area of the pitch to make positive plays. The ball is played to him, he puts himself between the defender and the ball, using his arm to keep the defender away. Bruno could attack the space in front of him, but he knows there's a high chance the defender catches him as he's the one with the forward momentum. Instead, Bruno takes a touch away from the defender, who has to come at a hard stop. There's another defender nearby, and with quick feet, Bruno takes him away from the play. Still, the original defender is close by. But watch how low Bruno gets his shoulder, beating the defender to the spot, and is now charging at the backline with teammates in front. Earlier I said this play is him at his best in a nutshell, right? So far, we've seen his bravery in wanting to receive in dangerous areas and the quick feet and composure on the ball. But that's not it. After all that, Bruno could easily think he's done his job and release the ball to whichever teammate is in front. But watch what he does next. He drives with the ball to the point he has full attention from every defender in front of him. He's collapsed the defense and now has teammates wide open deep into the penalty area. He then has the composure and quality to find his teammate for a clear sight on goal. Bruno is someone who demands attention, especially when he's on the ball higher up the pitch. That attention he receives, coupled with his willingness to always play his teammates into space, is such a deadly combination. Bruno receives the ball here and drives towards goal. Pay attention to how every defender is totally fixated on him. His teammate knows this, so he runs in behind. Immediately, Bruno plays a lovely ball over the top, which his teammate can't quite control. His teammates benefit massively when he's on the ball, especially the forwards. He gets them into goal scoring positions quite frequently. Take a look at this. Bruno has the ball with the defense in a compact shape. Nothing looks on. Notice how every player has their eyes glued to Bruno. Bruno lifts his head and spots his teammates running behind. Now, do you think his teammate would have made that move had it not been Bruno on the ball? You really notice the trust his team has in him in these moments, because nothing looked on at all. Still, Bruno manages to thread the pass through a really small window, which his teammate can't quite control. His passing is easily amongst the best in the league. I really like his forward thinking, and it's something that would really benefit Arsenal, especially in open play. Arsenal are an almost complete side, but an area they've no doubt struggled in is moving the ball quickly to the attackers. It's probably the area Bruno would improve Arsenal the most. Now, we've spent most of the video looking at his value on the ball, but how is he defensively? Bruno is an aggressive front foot defender who's really good in closing down in short distances. When facing attackers head on, he goes in with full force and can be quite erratic, but oftentimes his defensive approach is quite calculated, staying on the opponent's blind side and then pouncing. Look at him here. His teammate is pressing onto the opponent. There's two options for the player on the ball to play to. Notice Bruno gamble early. He stayed in the player's blind side and recovers the ball instantly. It's not only in high pressing scenarios he does this in, but also when he's screening the backline a bit deeper. Bruno's in the centre here, the opposition has the ball. Now his teammate thinks the player here wants to run in behind, so he goes in that direction. But no one makes that run, and now the player is free to receive with time and space. Bruno notices very early, even before the player on the ball does, so he charges at the free man here who checks his shoulder, not knowing Bruno is on his blind side. The pass is played to him, and Bruno pounces on his first touch. When the team's defensive structure is intact, Bruno is a reliable defender. However, when the distances open up, that's when he struggles to keep up. He isn't someone you want to be the deepest midfielder in a game that's open. He gives away a lot of fouls, most of which when the game is stretched. To me, this is only a real concern if he's having to be the destroyer type midfielder for a team that's really open, which is far from what we know Arteta's Arsenal to be. So we've seen what Bruno offers on the ball and his work off it, but there's one more part of his game worth touching on, which is his goal scoring. Bruno is a real goal threat from midfield and has been since he came to the Premier League. Last season, he scored 9 goals, and whilst I don't expect him to hit that tally again at Arsenal, I do see him getting around 5 to 7 league goals, which is still a really solid return. A big part of that is his long range shooting. He strikes the ball really well consistently and is very capable of scoring from distance. He's also a threat from set pieces and has even scored directly from a goal last season. But what I like most about his goal scoring is his knack for arriving late in the box, those deep third man runs where he times it perfectly and gets himself on the end of chances a lot of midfielders just wouldn't even attempt. It's very similar to what we saw with Zubimendi last season, that hunger to make runs from deep and create panic to the opposition. It's such a valuable trait, especially against teams that sit really deep. So far in this video, we've gone through his tendencies, good and bad, and I want to go back to the question I asked at the start. Is he really what Arsenal need? The main thing that stands out with this transfer for me is that Bruno doesn't lock Arsenal into one shape. He's comfortable operating in a double pivot just as much in a midfield three, and no matter where he plays, he's able to switch his game depending on what's needed. Some games that's playing deep and focusing on the defensive side of the game, other times it's getting forward and making things happen higher up the pitch. And that's exactly why I think he really fits well at Arsenal. Not only does he have a lot of quality very few possess, he can easily rotate across all of Arsenal's midfield roles, and for a side pushing on every front, that depth and versatility is highly important. Remember earlier when I said defenses fixate so much on him when he's on the ball? That's the bit that matters a lot for Arsenal, probably the most. The main area they've struggled with is having that player in midfield the opposition just cannot relax against in central areas on the ball, which then opens up the game for those around them. Last season, Arsenal were looking really still in midfield, and it wasn't until Lewis Kelly came into midfield and showcased the importance of having that gravity, which made it a lot easier for his teammates to thrive. And Bruno has exactly that, not with his dribbling, but more so with his passing. When he's on the ball, defenders gravitate towards him. That's where players like Saka and Cole will get to do their thing with time and space. Earlier I said Bruno is a risky player. He receives the ball in dangerous areas, and when he loses it, teams can cause real problems on the counter. But Arsenal have elite off-ball structure and are the best in the world at pinning teams back far away from their goal. So all that risk and turning the ball over could be fatal for a lesser side, but Arsenal can play to the margins a lot more because of their defensive quality and structure. Now, what about the drop off we spoke about, especially with his first step and dribbling not being quite there? And yeah, that's quite a concern. Could the season gone by be a warning that he's currently in decline? I personally don't think so. But at the same time, I don't think he'll have a lot of seasons maintaining his level at Arsenal. he'd probably have 2 or 3 seasons max. However, Arsenal are in a period where they're one of the best teams in the world. They're at a point where they need to maintain their level, and Bruno isn't one for the future. His time is now. It's why even at the high price Newcastle would demand, I'd say he's totally worth it. You're not paying for a potential or a player who has to adapt. He's ready to contribute to a winning team instantly. Arsenal are paying for a profile that makes everyone around him better. Not only is he technically amazing, he's also a real leader, and those players don't come cheap. Let me know what you think of this transfer. Am I overhyping Bruno? Do you think this signing changes much for Arsenal? Comment below on which players you want me to analyse next. Until next time, peace.